Once again, part 3 means that if you came across this video first, you should go watch parts 1 and 2 before it. They are linked down in the description, and here is the time code for where I'm done with the story commentary, which for issues 9, 10, 11 and 12 starts now. Okay, now that there are 5 parallel Earths coexisting in the same nether space, the Guardians of the Universe reinstate Guy Gardner back as a Green Lantern, right before there is an explosion on Oa, and that leads into a tie-in issue in the Green Lantern comics. So let's instead move on to Brainiac's ship, where the sentient drone and Lex Luthor have managed to gather all the villains they have managed to pretty much tell them that since the Anti-Monitor has been dealt with, now it's their turn as supervillains to take over the world as it exists now. Right after they kill off the Earth 2 Lex Luthor as an unneeded extra. Before they decide to actually do what they are planning to do, we get showcased what the new normal is in the Netherverse, with Starfire introducing Nightwing to her family on Tamaran, and how at this point, where the 5 Earths converge, have experts like Rip Hunter, Janet Clyburn, Will Magnus, and Darwin Jones being interviewed to explain what has become to the reality. Eventually the skies start to turn red as the villains are shown to covertly doing what they are doing on the other Earths. While Alexander Luthor of Earth 3, Lila and Pariah are speaking at the United Nations of Earth 1 about what those previous experts failed to explain. As people like Wonder Woman and Lady Quark are watching it, Pariah suddenly disappears as a sign that the danger has not ended.
No, it's happening again. The force is churning within me, warning me of danger, of evil. I'm being drawn elsewhere. The danger has not ended!
With Brainiac and Lex Luthor appearing to state what they have done and to make demands. Naturally, the heroes join forces in not only dragging Wally West out of retirement as Kid Flash, to help Jay Garrick's Flash to set up the Cosmic Treadmill to send teams of heroes like Infinity Inc., Metal Men, Doom Patrol, Justice Society, Teen Titans, as well as Batman and the Outsider to those Earths currently under villain occupation. To which Luthor and Brainiac have prepared for, and that leads to a prolonged heroes versus villains fighting sequence. Highlights of it are how Chemo kills Aqua Girl, Poison Ivy has the Freedom Fighters held captive to be taunted by the Joker, Dr. Phosphorus kills Hawkman, Simon tries and ultimately fails to take over the villains from Brainiac before being killed, Cole manages to crystallize Black Adam, Martian Manhunter and Platinum create a distraction for Atom to rescue Billy Batson to bring out Shazam to the fight, until the Spectre appears to tell everyone,
"Stop! You must cease this mindless battle, for while you fight, the end of all the universe is at hand. Hear the word of the Spectre and learn what you must do. The Anti-Monitor still lives, and now he seeks the destruction of all life. He has fled from hell, retreated to the past before life evolved, before this earth was born. He has traveled to the very dawn of time itself. From there, he will change the course of all time. No longer will there be positive matter. Only anti-matter will prevail. All Earth, all universes, all life will be eliminated. All there will remain in the anti-matter universe. I was powerless, but I saw. I observed. And my orders they all be fearless vandals, not to fight amongst themselves, to combine their awesome powers. Half must travel to the beginning of time. The others must go to the planet Ola, where history must be changed. There must be cooperation, or all life is doomed to non-existence. Decide now! There will be no second chances.
Brainiac, as a 12th level intellect, tells Luthor to fold and join forces with the heroes so they can ensure their own existence.
Sonic, I hereby induct you into the Eggman Empire and order you to save us all. Understand? This is not an alliance.
If that's how you want to spin it, Dr. Ego Man.
In private, while others like Rip Hunter and the Legion of Superheroes are preparing their time machines, the Earth 2 Superman spends what time he can with his Lois to say what they both need to hear before a big mission like this, with Alexander Jr. spying on them. In the middle of still discussing their plans on how this is going to go down, a young version of Superboy whose world, aka our world Earth Prime, has been destroyed appears before the heroes and villains, wanting to join in the fight against the Anti-Monitor as the only thing he has left. He is accepted, and before leaving, Uncle Sam delivers a speech in reminding everyone that even though they are from different worlds, their goal is a shared one with survival and freedom from the Anti-Monitor's threat. With that, the Metal Men, the electric and magnetic-powered heroes and villains, unite their powers with the two present Flashes to send the two teams to the two eras needed. We first see the heroes as they reach the dawn of time, where the Anti-Monitor appears to have been waiting for them with the Pariah in his captivity.
I have been awaiting for your arrival here. Indeed, I have been disappointed that it has taken you this long to find me.
Go. Back. Quickly. For heaven's sake, don't stay here. He has me trapped. Don't let him capture you too. I caused this. I brought the Anti-Monitor back to life, even as I destroyed my own universe. Don't worry about me. Destroy him.
Fool, you did nothing but open the antimatter portal to the dawn of time. Did you truly believe mere scientific investigation could unleash forces great enough to destroy a universe? No. But I took advantage of your experiment. I converted the antimatter into energy, which I focus into your universe, destroying those worlds to gather even more energy. Only then was I powerful enough to break free from my prison and to spread my rule.
I didn't kill my people, my world, the entire universe?
No. But I shall use you to destroy all existing life. Then, at long last, I shall be free to rebuild the antimatter universe in my image.
Don't believe it, Monitor. As far as I'm concerned, you're already dead. Attack!
And that is where Superman decides that he has heard enough in leading the charge of heroes against the Anti-Monitor, while Batman and Earth 2 Robin can just stand by as cheerleaders. Meanwhile, 10 billion years ago on planet Oa, the villains team led by Lex Luthor are fighting their way to prevent Krona from conducting his experiment that created the multiverse and the antimatter universe. Unfortunately, the Oans are too powerful for them to resist their psychic attack, and Krona himself manages to kill Mirror Master, Icicle, and Maldor when they reach his laboratory. Back at the dawn of time,
I led you fools to the dawn of creation. I waited here until you appeared. I needed you. I needed your life forces. I needed your energies, for I expended my own in breaching the wall of creation. There! Your energy shall change the course of history, for only here, before the creation, can all the future be changed. When Krona taps the cosmic forces, opening the door between matter and antimatter, it shall be my hand he sees. My hand which shall destroy the positive matter multiverse for now and forever. My hand which shall make the antimatter universe supreme. You fools have given me the power to change the course of history. The multiverse will no longer exist. All life will be destroyed, and after 10 billion years, I shall be victorious!
No, you can't do this. You can't! Stop him! Somebody stop him!
but none of the heroes can do anything as their powers are being used to keep them in place until at the last moments.
A force resisting me. Who dares?
I dare, cruel one, and I will stop you. As you absorb the powers of those great earthly heroes, the Spectre shall absorb those of the sorcerers. Their magic flow into me. Their great powers become mine.
No!
But But even as Dr. Fate, Zatanna, Phantom Stranger, Abracadabra, John Zatara, Thunderbolt, Madame Xanadu, and so on are powering up the Spectre in his fight against the Anti-Monitor, they then learn of the villain's failure as Krona's screen appears above them.
Now, Krona, open the portal. Peer back at the dawn of creation. Do it now! No! No!
No, we have not lost. Not yet. More power. I need more strength. More!
And so that energy explodes inside the Spectre as the conduit funneling it, making the vengeful hand of God witness the worlds that never have existed, and as he screams, the existing universe shatters in the form of the Big Bang.
In the beginning, there were many, a multiversal infinitude, so cold and dark for so very long that even the burning light was imperceptible. But then the light grew, and the multiverse shuddered, and darkness screamed as much in pain as in relief. For that instant, a universe was born. A universe with mighty worlds orbiting burning suns. A universe reborn at the dawn of time. What had been many became one.
On what seems to be a typical morning in Metropolis, a middle-aged Clark Kent awakens alone in his apartment in believing his wife Lois to be at work, and so absent-mindedly makes his way to Daily Planet, where he is then called out by Perry White for having walked into his office. Luckily for the older Clark Kent, there is a younger Clark Kent who manages to make up some bullshit about his older counterpart being his uncle and pull him away to the roof of the Daily Planet building where they can talk while changing into their Superman costumes.
I thought it had all been a dream, but it's true. And somehow I appeared on Earth 1. No problem, I'll fly with you to New York to the Warp Zone bridge between the Earths. Sooner I'm home, the happier I'll be. It's been far too long since I saw Lois.
As far as the two Supermen know right now, they should both be on Earth 1, and the events of the crisis have been suppressed in the people's memories that the events like Supergirl's death have happened, but the circumstances surrounding her death are not remembered. They fly to Washington, where there used to be a warp point between the different Earths before, but the absence of the police cordon guarding it and the older Superman not being recognized delays their plans to return him to his own world. So, next they try to fly to Central City for the Flash's cosmic treadmill. But in arriving, learn that the Keystone City from Earth 2 has been relocated to this world to exist as a twin city with Central City. There they find Jay Garrick's wife, where Jay's wife Joan greets them unfamiliar with the older Superman. But Jay does recognize and know his old Jay as a teammate and welcomes both Supermen to his basement, where Wally West is preparing the cosmic treadmill for use. Before jumping onto it, Jay brings up that he went to look for Barry, but could only learn that he is still missing from when he was cleared on his trial for having killed the Reverse Flash. Jay himself is remembered to have always existed on this Earth as the oldest Flash, but when he tried to call the older Superman in Metropolis, his phone number was not found. In this confusion, the Supermen, the older Flash and Kid Flash, decided to jump on the cosmic treadmill to go where the Earth 2 should be and see if it's still there. But instead, they find themselves in an endless abyss, where at one time there might have been the heart of all worlds.
Kingdom Hearts!
But neither it or Earth 2 can be found there, which alerts 3 out of the 4 of them that they need to go back.
We've got to turn back! Return home! Don't you see what happened?
But the older Superman, in his desperation of not having a home anymore, feels resigned to let the emptiness take him.
No, I feel like I don't belong on that Earth. I belong elsewhere. I belong out there, in the void, in this nothingness. I see it now. Nobody remembers me because I don't have a past, because I don't exist. Let me go. I belong in the dark. No, whatever's going on, you still exist. You're real. You're tangible. You exist. We can sort out the whys later, maybe even the hows, but you're not staying in this nothingness. You're coming home.
Before the younger Superman pulls him back and they return to the one Earth at the cost of the cosmic treadmill. In space, Rip Hunter still remembers that Earth 1 and Earth 2 used to coexist, and has taken Animal Man, Dolphin, Captain Comet, Adam Strange and Atomic Knight to find Brainiac's skull ship, so they can access his mainframe and see if he still remembers the multiverse too. On the one remaining Earth, all the heroes have gathered to the Teen Titans Tower to discuss how heroes like Shazam can't return to Earth S, and Uncle Sam can't go back to Earth X. Then Layla appears once again as the Harbinger to both announce how the cosmic reboot has restored her powers, and that due to the cosmic reboot there really only is one Earth left now, with only those who were at the dawn of time being able to remember the old multiverse. As the result, some of the heroes and their villains have been integrated to the history of this world, but not the older Superman, older Robin or Huntress from Earth 2, as well as the younger Superboy from Earth Prime, who only exist now as ghosts without existing pasts on this world. This revelation hits the older Superman hardest, with his world and his wife now never having existed, with the older Robin and Huntress also clearly shocked. While the younger Superman flies after his older counterpart to give him support, the Phantom Stranger and Deadman are looking after a weakened Spectre. Angleman is found dead in Las Vegas with the evidence pointing at a suicide, and Dr. Fate sends Dr. Occult to save Princess Amethyst from the superstitious people of Salem, who are blaming her for the appearance of the shadow creatures. Etrigan and Dr. Fate step in as the creatures wound Princess Amethyst, but are eventually forced to retreat to the Gem World, while Superman has managed to catch up with his older counterpart and calm him down the best he can. At the same time at the Teen Titans Tower, Donna Troy recounts how the Earth 2 Wonder Woman is still around with her daughter, while Batman, Robin and Alexander Jr. report that they have visited Lex Luthor at his cell, with him also not remembering the past multiverse due to not having been there at the dawn of time. And then, the skies begin to turn red, while a vortex of the same color is found in the caves deep under Peru. Pariah disappears once again, with the antimatter beginning to take over Alexander Jr. Earth shakes, fighting and protesting what is happening to no avail, and when it stops, the two Supermen look up to the sky to see what has happened.
Everything's changed. What happened?
Don't you recognize the sky? We're no longer in the positive matter universe. Great Krypton, the Earth shifted into another universe. Great Scott, Kal-El, look.
Welcome to my universe. Welcome to your doom.
And back in space, Rip Hunter, Adam Strange, Atomic Knight, Dolphin, Animal Man and Captain Comet have managed to turn Brainiac back online, and his skull ship is set course for someone who can help them back to Earth.
Welcome to the antimatter universe. Welcome to your doom. Since my birth, 10 billion years ago, I have not known defeat. 1,000 universes before yours perished without resistance, but you refused to die. I was to enlarge my antimatter universe to have to replace all others. 1,000 meaningless victories, because you resisted my efforts to destroy you. One universe, protected by one small and terribly insignificant little world. A token force of humans succeeding where untold powers had failed. I offer you my congratulations. I acknowledge your persistence. Your will to live is astonishing, but ultimately changes nothing. Your world must die, as your superworld died, as your Flash died, as so many others who tried to stop me died. And with its death, there will be none who can prevent my universe from replacing your.
The Flash. He's dead? You murdered the Flash?
How? Where is he?
My warriors stain your world with blood. They are everywhere, and they cannot be stopped. Hear the death knell, human, for it is the last sound you shall ever hear.
He's gone, and the skies turned black. But what did he mean by his warriors are already here? Great Scott, use your telescopic vision. Look at the
City, any city.
The screams, Kal-El pleading, praying, panicking. Why do I have to have super hearing? This is too much to bear.
As the two Supermen can see and hear the people's horror at their current situation, they are approached by the Harbinger to take them to where they are needed, before she next goes to collect more heroes like Dr. Light to go fight the Anti-Monitor again, while the Challengers of the Unknown are used as a framing device to witness the shadow creatures coming down on the isolated Earth. All across the planet, heroes are fighting to protect the people from the shadow creatures, as well as falling in battle with those they are protecting. Meanwhile, the other heroes summoned by Harbinger and Pariah are brought under the recovering Spectre to brief them all on how Alexander is used to create a space elevator through the dark cover around Earth and send this group of heroes to fight the Anti-Monitor one last time. And while that is happening, Brainiac and Rip Hunter's team arrive to Apocalypse before Darkseid to make a deal with the devil. And Dove of Hawk and Dove falls in battle while saving people from the shadow creatures. In Salem, Johnny Thunder witnesses as all the magician heroes and villains are supporting Dr. Occult and Alan Scott's Green Lantern in, I suppose they are maxing out everyone's luck stats to better everyone's odds. Back to Harbinger's group, the space elevator has brought those heroes now to Quard, where Pariah is unable to locate the Anti-Monitor, and Kid Flash surprises everyone in having hitched a ride in wanting to have learned what the Anti-Monitor meant in saying that the Flash is dead. Then the Flash appears before him, just like he did with Batman way back in the part 1 video, which then gives Wally a hope spot for Barry to still be alive. But instead he ends up running and dragging everyone with him to this site.
Come on, Flash. You said you'd save me. You promised you would. You promised! The Anti-Monitor lied to me, but I know you won't. You're the one of the good guys. Good guys never lie. I'm scared, Flash. So frightened. He's going to kill me unless you save me. Don't just stand there. Help me. Save me. Come on. I told you I was sorry for hurting you before, but save me now. No! Leave that uniform alone. Get your stinking hands off it. Let it go, you maniac. Let it go.
The Flash is dead for the next 23 years, but mourning over him is going to have to wait, because now Pariah has managed to pinpoint where the Anti-Monitor is.
Hurry. Overpowering concentration of evil. Be ahead of us. Hurry, before it's not too late.
You whimpering fool. It already is too late. For the moment you set foot on Quard, you sealed your own fates. This is the day the universe dies.
And then we see how Earth is going through what might as well be called the final culling, as Lori Lemaris dies fighting the shadow creatures in Atlantis. Earth 2 Green Arrow dies the same way in Chicago. The Matt Hagen Clayface dies in Gotham City. And Cole of the Teen Titans dies along with Earth 2 Robin and Huntress while trying to save them. But on the plus side, those magicians have managed to empower Dr. Occult and Green Lantern Alan Scott essentially to throw a huge net on every shadow creature on Earth and throw them to heaven helvetti of the planet. On Quard, both Superman and Wonder Woman, along with Firestorm, Shazam, Lady Quark, Captain Atom and so on, are fighting the Anti-Monitor, until Dr. Light begins to fight with JRPG mechanics by using a light magic attack on the Anti-Monitor's Dark Ball of Darkness and Destruction. That then begins to weaken the Anti-Monitor, as Alexander Jr. comments on it being her absorbing the Anti-Monitor's power, and then also using his own powers to deal similar damage.
I have told you, time and time again, I cannot be destroyed. You will die. Then your world and your very universe will follow you into oblivion. I will tolerate no further defeats!
Then Pariah sends Negative Woman to use her radioactive powers to bind the Anti-Monitor, so everyone who has them can use their vision powers as range attacks to lead to Dr. Light's finishing move.
He's fallen. Dr. Light, do it now!
That brings the Anti-Monitor down for the count, and Alexander then uses his powers to open a portal between the antimatter universe and the positive matter universe, so that Earth can be the first thing to go through it. But then the shadow creatures that were thrown into Heaven Helvetin are suddenly drawn back at the Anti-Monitor to revive him.
I cannot be stopped, human. I no longer care about your puny world. Your universe is of no more interest to me. But you humans, you have thwarted my every move. I swear, all the power at my command shall be used to annihilate you.
Wonder Woman?
Yeah, that was the younger, now main Wonder Woman who just got killed by the Anti-Monitor. So naturally, the younger, now main Superman along with Lady Quark want to avenge her death, even if they stay trapped in the antimatter universe, so...
Both of you can forget it. Sorry, but this is the only way. You people have too much to live for. I don't. Not any longer. In our reborn universe, my Krypton never existed. That means I don't exist, and I don't want to. Not without the woman I love.
The Earth 2 Superman says, while giving his younger counterpart and Lady Quark to the younger Superboy.
Take them back to Earth and stay there. I know what needs to be done. Do what I say and no arguments.
As the younger Superboy flies away with the main Superman and Lady Quark, the older Superman turns to confront the Anti-Monitor.
You stay behind, Kryptonian? Then you are the greatest fool I have ever known.
Ugly, you may be right, but somebody has to clean up the garbage. I guess I was elected.
Then you will die.
And then as the older Superman fights the Anti-Monitor, the power of the shadow creatures is revealed to have been changed by the magicians to poison the Anti-Monitor. The young Superboy from Earth Prime, remembering how his world no longer exists either, throws Superman and Lady Quark through the portal just as it closes as Alexander Jr. once again, and flies back to fight alongside with the older Superman, while Alexander's eyes are taken over remotely by Darkseid. The older Superman takes the entire mass of Quark and throws it at the Anti-Monitor to once again put that monster down again before checking up on the younger Superboy. But even then...
No! I am not finished with you. I have not yet destroyed you. You must die. And I must kill you. I absorbed all the energy my universe provides. I will kill you, even if I must die myself. Die!
And then Darkseid remotely aims with Alexander's gaze and fires energy from his eyes, pushing the Anti-Monitor into his own dark ball of darkness and destruction.
You owe me nothing, but one day you will pay. Today, Apocalypse and Earth faced a mutual threat. Cooperation was essential for survival. Go and leave my world but be warned. When we next meet, it shall be as enemies.
Thrice now has the Anti-Monitor been defeated, but as the older Superman and the young Superboy are rendezvousing with Alexander Jr.
Superman, I will not die until you die with me!
Can't anything stop him? His body's destroyed, but he still comes back. He's a fireball, a living, killing fireball. No more. Nothing matters any longer. I want to see him destroyed. I have had enough!
That is how it ends. with the old original Golden Age Superman who debuted in 1938, delivering the final blow against the Anti-Monitor and ending his existence with a huge explosion that then begins to spread ripples of antimatter, which the older Superman and the young Superboy are totally okay with in seeing this as a good death after winning a good fight. And then Alexander Jr. reveals that he has managed to save the older Superman's Lois into a pocket dimension inside himself, into which he also invites the older Superman and the young Superboy with promises of peace that they deserve after all of this. Okay, and then there are a few other things to go over. Wonder Woman did not die. She was somehow sent backwards in time and reduced into the clay she had been created from. That was done to set up her post-crisis origin story in George Perez's Wonder Woman run. The older Wonder Woman from Earth 2 was welcome to live with the Greek gods on Olympus, but her daughter was retconned into not being her daughter anymore because haistakaa vittu! For those who died in the final culling were remembered as events of the crisis were eventually faded from everyone's memories, similar to how people of the New Earth who were not at the dawn of time did, and Wally West became the new Flash for an entire generation until Jeff Johns became the chief creative officer at DC Comics in the late 2000s, of which I talked obscurely about in the opening of my Flashpoint video. A lot of other things happened to Layla and Harbinger, but they were pretty much forgotten by the other writers before Layla was killed off when Supergirl was brought back, watch this video, and Pariah was killed by Alexander Jr. in the lead up to Infinite Crisis. And Psycho Pirate was left as the only one who properly remembers that this story even happened.
I remember all that happened, and I'm not going to forget. Worlds lived, worlds died. Nothing will ever be the same. For you see, I like to remember the past, because those were the better times than now. I mean, I'd rather live in the past than today, wouldn't you? I mean, nothing's ever certain anymore. Nothing's ever predictable like it used to be. These days, you just never know who's going to die and who's going to live.
Okay, it took me longer to edit the story commentary than with part 2, meaning that the part 3 movie managed to come out while I was still in the middle of editing it. And because I knew I would not be able to dodge the spoilers for long, I decided to watch it to get the viewing out of the way, meaning that I might as well review the final 4 issues while comparing them to part 3. Before I start with that, I should acknowledge this article from comicbookmovie.com, where Tomorrowverse producer Butch Luvick stated that starting with the Man of Tomorrow movie from 2020, the production team was essentially given a 5-year plan during which they end up making just 10 movies and a few shorts. Or technically, they made 7 movies and cut 2 of them into 2 and 3 parts. Regardless, James Gunn's upcoming DC Universe movies are going to have the same actors for live action and animated properties, so Tomorrowverse is pretty much shown the door with his middle finger. I would say more about the supposed plans for a self-contained story over 10 movies part, but I was too busy to watch what came out after the Long Halloween movies. Okay, and now let's compare the latter third of the comic to the part 3 movie. I might as well start by thanking Jay Heath, Robert, Jared, and Nick for having voiced the Anti-Monitor, the Spectre, both versions of Superman and Pariah, because none of those powerful moments I had them voice in the story commentary are adapted to this animated movie. The villains team up is only included in how apparently the Earth 10 Lex Luthor, who 1 is voiced by Corey Stoll instead of Zachary Quinto, who voiced him in part 1, 2 as a native to that Earth would be a Nazi, and 3 has gathered mostly Batman's villains from the Long Halloween movie without having Brainiac with them. And Psycho Pirate is also now in their captivity for some reason, with the Nazi Luthor having him send a message to the Anti-Monitor outside of the Bleed. That brings us to how the Nether Space has been replaced with the Bleed from Final Crisis, where it was established to be something of a filler area / substance between the parallel Earths by Grant Morrison. And the Wedding of River Song-style weirdness, as which I called it in the part 2 video, is a set piece with the dinosaurs running around Metropolis while a handful of heroes is trying to contain them, with Sergeant Rock and the Losers having a cameo during it. Also, Aquaman of the Drowned Earth 146 puts Lois in her place and gives anti-Lois people like Jared some vindication.
Here's a nose full of Metropolis just for you!
Lois, no! I got this!
Just use it!
Really? Because it sort of looks like...
Wow, Jared just got validated.
Oh, you two got this.
Oh! And that the Bat family of Earth 2 Robin and Earth 2 Huntress, along with Batgirl Robin and Batman Beyond, well, apparently they are all from Earth 2, siis mitä helvettiä! If that bullshit scene of Bruce asking Barry to put Dick into a foster system in Central City didn't happen, the younger Robin, be it Damian or Dick, and Batgirl could have been from the Tomorrowverse, and Batman Beyond from Earth 12, aka the DCAU. But that was probably changed because it would have retconned Terry out of existence, like with what happened to Dawnstar and Brainiac 5 in part 1. Because Kevin Conroy's final scene as Batman had the DCAU destroyed in the past before Terry would have been conceived. By the way, about Kevin Conroy's and supposedly Mark Hamill's final scene as Batman and the Joker.
I must say, Batsy, I'm flattered. The end of the world, and you want to spend it with me? I didn't know you cared.
That is not Mark Hamill. That does not sound Mark Hamill at all. At least not the Mark Hamill I recognize. That does not sound anything like Mark Hamill from any of the recent things he has voiced the Joker in before deciding to retire following Kevin Conroy's passing.
Oh, Batman, we have got to stop meeting like this. When do they get a load of me?
But with Kevin himself...
I care, Joker. About Gotham. About justice. And if it has to end, at least I go out like this, being Batman.
All I can say about it is what I did when I first heard the news. Thanks for the memories, Kevin, and good luck for the journey you now have in the next life. And then we also get to see the DCAU Justice League killed off on the Watchtower, but that happens later in the movie, so let's rewind back to... Where was I again? Oh right, that Bat family that is just there are all from the same Earth. Lex Luthor is probably a Nazi if he is from Earth 10, and the Wedding of River Song Madness includes more of his people showing up to fight the Bat family with Batman's villain's equipment. Scarecrow's fear toxin causes Batman to have a bad trip where he sees Barry like in the comic, share it to the others with the Dr. Fate to hear how Barry talked about the beginning, and Jon Stewart without a Green Lantern ring anymore tells them about his meeting with Constantine, who claims to be an old one. Then they track Constantine to a saloon on Earth 18, aka the Justice Riders world, and then hear from him what has been substituted for Pariah's origin story and its prequel from the comic. Jim Krieg did not prove me wrong, as the Green Lantern lore has been replaced by tying the Tomorrowverse into the final The Camus movie, aka Justice League Dark the Apocalypse Wars ending, where Constantine sent the Flash to run back in time to create a new Flashpoint to prevent Darkseid's invasion that left Earth looking like that. Constantine essentially used magic to turn Barry into SCP-1440, aka the Old Man from Nowhere, by having him kill everyone he runs past, and sent him to run back in time to Apocalypse when Darkseid was still baby Uxas and kill him in his crib. And by doing that, he also killed off Kalibak, Kraven, Grail, and Orion, as Darkseid was also their father. So basically, not having the physical embodiments of good and evil, Orion is the former one, time was broken and created a multiverse circling around the Tomorrowverse with other DC properties like the DCAU, Super Friends, and the 2003 Teen Titans show, all of which are destroyed in this movie by one of the many anti-monitors who are reimagined as forms of antibodies fighting to kill cancer cells, which is what the parallel Earths in the multiverse are now as it keeps expanding. J-Heat, I cannot thank you enough for having voiced the Anti-Monitor in this story commentary and helping me showcase what we could have had instead of this. Same with Robert, as the Spectre does not do anything cool like tell everyone to stop or dare to oppose the Anti-Monitor at the dawn of time like in the comic. As a matter of fact, most of the movie is set in the Bleed, where the Nazi Luthor eventually called the Anti-Monitor to start tearing down its walls, and the fights against him from issues 10 and 12 are reenacted with a couple of battles, where the Anti-Monitor one-shots groups of heroes trying to oppose him. Essentially, the Anti-Monitor is doing what he probably would have done with the antimatter cannon if Barry had not destroyed it. The Nazi Luthor's justification for all those deaths is...
They would have died anyway. Michael, Anti-Monitor aside, what is our estimated time of survival here in the Bleed?
Well, between the exponential population explosion due to the time-displaced individuals, limited resources, and unreliable physical rules.
Not too freaking long.
I face the hard truth that we're all doomed if we don't destroy this creature. An impossibility without more data. So I simply contacted the Anti-Monitor and told him I was willing to make a deal with him.
Let me guess. That you'd give him the location of the other Earths if he spared Earth 10.
The details of this supposed deal are unimportant. We had to see him. Find its weakness. Find its...
kryptonite?
My world was in just as much danger. But now we know more about this monster. Now we have a chance.
And all that leads up to them learning that the Anti-Monitor is weak to light attacks like the Alan Wake Taken-inspired shadow creatures. But they need to use the power of about 52 suns to destroy the Anti-Monitor. Naturally, the Nazi Luthor suggests that they sacrifice one of the two Supermen to charge up on solar energy and then use that attack with the same name as Solar Flare! From Dragon Ball that was given to Superman back during the New 52. But because this movie tries to be an adaptation of Crisis on Infinite Earths, they use Supergirl to do that instead so she can die while doing it. And so we can get this panel recreated. Honey, got the iconic shot for about a fraction of a minute there. Fraction of a second, I mean. Okay, there it is. The comics version was better, but I'm not going to say that this was bad either. Not bad, but not as good either. Or what would you say, J-Heat?
I'm gonna keep it weird with y'all. It was not enough to save this movie, because Holy Santa Maria!
Thanks, J-Heat. And after that, the movie next kills off the Super Friends, the DCAU, and the 2003 Teen Titans by revealing that there are multiple anti-monitors before pulling the Miracle Machine from, let's go with Final Crisis, and use it as a substitute for the Big Bang reboot at the dawn of time. The Earth 2 Wonder Woman, who apparently is the only Wonder Woman we have in the movie, and she also does not have a daughter while in a relationship with the Earth 2 Superman, volunteers to sacrifice herself to power up the Miracle Machine in an act that I think is supposed to be a homage to how she was killed off / rewinded back to clay for George Perez's run. The movie ends with a younger child Diana, which I would say is a definitive reference to that, but that is just because I'm a comparison reviewer familiar with the source material. People who have not read the comics could probably mistake it as a setup for a Wonder Woman series. As for the survivors of the story, the Miracle Machine opened up a portal into a single rebooted universe, where everyone entering with their variants were said to merge with each other into singular new versions. It's not shown how it happens in the movie, unlike how it was shown in issue 11, which Robert called more of a transitional period where the post-crisis continuity was settling itself in, and then it needed to call out all the extra characters who did not fit in anymore, most of them by falling in battle, which was a commendable way to go. Otherwise, the post-crisis continuity was more or less rewinded backwards, as I pointed out in my Death in the Family video, with how Batman comics showed the retelling of Jason Todd's origin story after Frank Miller's Year 1 story came out. While Superman was given John Byrne's The Man of Steel miniseries to establish his post-crisis origin, and Wonder Woman got George Perez's run. Green Lantern got the Emerald Dawn, and The Flash began the era of Wally West. And it is a shame that we couldn't have Wally as Kid Flash in this movie, and then see him become the Flash in Barry's place. Instead, we had to settle for that blink and you miss cameo of his dead version in part 1. Otherwise, the Tomorrowverse is over now, and the next time I will be poking it with my Keyblade will be when I decide to compare the Long Halloween 2-parter to its source material. Before giving J-Heat the microphone next, I'll just say that this was a passable finale movie to a rushed out movie universe. But as an adaptation to Crisis on Infinite Earths, it just took the place of a story with better moments that we won't get to see adapted into audiovisual media anymore for a long time now. Anything you want to add to that, J-Heat?
First, I would like to offer a moment of silence for the great Kevin Conroy in his final performance as the Caped Crusader. Thank you. Godspeed, Kevin. Godspeed. Even more so, one grand final moment as a fandom and community aside, I'm gonna keep it weird with y'all. It was not enough to save this movie, because Holy Santa Maria. Okay, I can forgive all the corporate behind the scenes stuff. I can forgive the overall 10-year arc of the Tomorrowverse being rushed, which will likely get its own video, but this is just that's neither here on my channel, cheap plug, but that's neither here or there. And Lord, if this even remotely ties to James Gunn's DCU, again, assuming it gets off the freaking ground, if we're really being honest. But all that aside, at the end of the day, this movie, it was just so boring. The reason the trilogy fundamentally fails in terms of an adaptation, is because the filler trying to connect to the Tomorrowverse, trying to retroactively try to tie the Tomorrowverse and Camus in this overarching intercontinuity narrative, which it just trimmed. A lot of this was fundamentally flawed from part 2, which really, in my opinion, was Crisis 1.5, because they wanted the big gravitas cliffhanger moment of Supergirl being manipulated by the Psycho-Pirate, her emotions, her angst, and unaliving the Anti-Monitor, and that was supposed to be a shocking moment cutting into part 3. Okay, makes sense. Only one small problem. You buried 45 minutes of part 1 and a good chunk of supposedly part 2, either with Tomorrowverse interconnectivity retrospectively or honest to God filler. And you could still keep Immortal's death/sacrifice in part 1 if you trim down the fat and not rely on filler as much. Like, for example, Barry's hyper time, all of that you could include, and even with the supposed time loop where Barry and I are supposedly disappeared, but really they're in flash time. Even if you factored all of that, arguably Tomorrowverse should have gotten a prompt Justice League movie, since a lot of the quote-unquote filler as an adaptation really should have been in relation to a Justice League movie in of itself. I'm fine with the Amazing arc, and it definitely was a narrative thread that tied everything together in part 1. But if you trim the fat just a little bit, you could have gotten Psycho Pirate's ascension, interacting with the Anti-Monitor, effectively screwing everyone else over, and manipulating Supergirl, and using his emotional powers to manipulate her. If you cut about 15 minutes of part 1 and about 30 of part 2, you could fit that mold relatively easily. I mean, seriously, this was relatively fixable with a little bit of extra work in the editing. But again, that's mostly from a structural standpoint, not from the confines of the story itself. As an adaptation, it's fine. It's kind of just like, okay, the Tomorrowverse was kind of like a series of animated movies to keep things consistent and hold us over until the Warner Discovery merger went through. And then, depending on what the movie side decides to do, we may have to rebrand altogether. So let's give you like a 7 to 10 movie arc, kind of as a basis, which on its own is not too bad. 5 to 10 movies, and on an average 2 to 3 year, depending if an Elseworld movie is sprinkled in there, release schedule, you could probably fulfill that within a roughly 2 to 4 year span. That's relatively easy to do from a commercial standpoint, budget notwithstanding. But those last 3 movies were consolidated via Crisis. Arguably 4 if we're counting World War, because World wasn't even a movie at all. It was just set up for Crisis. And no, spoilers ahead, but a last minute retcon involving Zeta beams does not warrant or diminish how bad a movie is. If you really wanted this to be a setup, Warworld should have been a showcase short, not an entire film. Even so, all in all, I mean, Supergirl's sacrifice, the recreation of Superman's iconic scream, if I just go into all that, and even with the later rendition of Charles Halstead's Psycho Pirate rather than the original one, as you've seen through these series of commentaries, and all the YouTubers that have worked alongside myself and Pika as we provided this awesome narration of the main storyline for his reviews. So I really appreciate you being patient and allowing us to make sure we provide the best quality for you going into this video. But even with that, Anti-Monitor was so freaking boring. I get it, you didn't want to add, there was a lot of A-listers here, a lot of highlights, even amongst the main Tomorrowverse cast. And Matt Ryan has definitely come up in the world in the acting scene. I will easily acknowledge that. But God, Anti-Monitor was so freaking lifeless, and then you're going with this antibody nonsense. Like, I get it. Why? And the worst part, even if you did want to actually give Anti-Monitor some gravitas, you just wanted to use them as a bloody plot device, you pull a Final Crisis and drag the Miracle Machine in it, you're already that much roped into a corner that you wrote yourself in. You literally use Final Crisis and the Miracle Machine as a Deus Ex Machina. And that's ironic because Final Crisis was like a story in of itself. No, I'm not going to get super nerdy about it. I promised I wasn't going to get super nerdy about it. Even so, having Earth 2 Diana's large apprehension towards relationships and letting people in, and a lot of that mostly stemmed from the fact that she's a demigod, she's technically immortal, and she'll outlive everyone around her. All the more reason you should cherish and relish life and the people around you because of that emptiness, because of that void. Even if we are ultimately setting up Wonder Woman's sacrifice as a caveat for the new Earth or Earth Prime, Earth 2 Diana learned this lesson as far back as Justice Society. The only difference is the actual comeuppance or tragedy that leads to that revelation was in the context of the death of Steve Trevor. Other than that, this is literally a retread of her arc back in Justice Society World War II. I'm not going to say it's the exact circumstance, but narratively, it's a bit of a retread. Sorry, but it needed to be said. Okay, but I digress. As for the Super Wonder stuff, it's fine. I mean, just about everyone going into New Earth kind of gets the whole Paradise Dimension anyway, with the way the movie was structured. He technically didn't really need Superboy Prime because, I mean, again, variants of the same character can be grating, if not borderline confusion. So at least from a casual standpoint, I understand that. As for Alexander Luthor, as a conduit of living matter and antimatter energies, again, the movie went in a completely different direction than the original comics. You technically don't even need Alexander Luthor, not at least in this context. But you might as well add him, considering that you took elements from Final Crisis in the third act just to write yourself out of a corner. Sorry, if I harp too much on this, I'll be ranting for 30 minutes. Anyway, as for the movie itself, I mean, it's fine. I'm not gonna say it's the part 2 is definitely the weakest of the 3 by a country mile. But as for part 3, Constantine being a Pariah stand-in, yes, with all the interconnectivity as far back from Apocalypse War, it works what the movie's trying to do. But again, that's this movie, this adaptation, this trilogy, overall Crisis's biggest problem. It's doing too much, too fast, and it's just all over the place. Both in terms of as a story, from the movie itself, to the meta side of things in the real world with corporate executives. It's just all over the goddamn place. And worst of all, you don't have a POV character as an audience surrogate. The closest you have to one is maybe Luthor when he makes the cold and calculated risk to sacrifice a few remaining Earths that are likely going to get erased less obliterated anyway to consolidate data against the Anti-Monitor. Other than that, and essentially setting up Supergirl's sacrifice, and even if we are factoring the Miracle Machine, Kara did absolutely nothing as she grieved for Monitor, as she grieved for the loss of Legion, and basically because of Crisis, the Legion are pretty much erased and have no real relation to the overall storyline at all. Even if we factor her downward spiral after being manipulated, the fact that we have an 8-month gap, and despite Kara being a Legionnaire, again, this even we're factoring the story's logic, okay, the Miracle Machine is a MacGuffin, and it helps set the stage for a new jumping on point. That's all it needs to be. Set it up! Have a throw area, but the only reason Kara didn't use it or didn't contemplate taking it from that pocket dimension because she genuinely believed it wouldn't work. Or at the very least, trying to use the Miracle Machine to pretty much carve a new reality to avoid the devastation of the Anti-Monitor would have been the coward's way out. Or she was compelled by her grief from the loss of Brainiac and the Legion to just cut her losses and create a new reality, which is what they essentially try to do, but they're so busy. Constantine carries the whole scene. I'm sorry, but that's all Constantine. And I'm not mad by the revelation per se. It's definitely something Constantine would do, but amidst all the parallel, amidst all this intercontinuity and all this fan service with the Decameron audience, but let's call it for what it is. It's fan service. Even with all that, altering a fixed point, something that is bound to happen as a staple of reality and your history going forward. It's just a stupid thing to do. If you're really going to try to do some interconnectivity of what happened post-Apocalypse War, you easily could have gone the Days of Future Past route, or maybe, Terminator's too much of a stretch. But you know what I'm trying to say, Days of Future Past, basically where one person, whether it be Shadowcat or Kitty Pryde in the original comic, or Wolverine in the movie, the Fox movie version, cheap blood Deadpool versus Wolverine, by the way. But even with that would have been at least a more contained story than the gravitas of Crisis if you were gonna, change the future and create a new jumping on point. But this Crisis, even though it technically does lead to a reboot in the original story anyway, the way the actual adaptation is, okay, regardless of whether Superman Legacy and James Gunn DCU works out, we got a reboot. Okay, we got 10 films, look, we're kind of making the last few a trilogy, just make it work. And corporate decided to go in a new direction. You kind of knew this was coming, just make it work. And if you look at behind the scenes, if you're actually factoring pre-production in between these films, Arrowverse Crisis was going on around the same time. So it's just Warner Brothers is going to Warner Brothers, and this is just a monotony of bad decisions. Because say what you will about, again, DCEU is a topic for a different thing, but the whole thing collapsed because they rushed key character interactions, payoffs, and character progression to catch up with their competitors. You have to take the slow burn. You have to establish these things to garner emotional investment. Stuff like this is not something that can be rushed. You had an opportunity to establish across the finish line with both the Nolan trilogy and Justice League Mortal, I believe the project was called, before it was ultimately shelved and canned, before you ultimately decided to abandon it because it was essentially to interconnect in a series of a theatrical movie series or interconnected universe was commercially too big of a risk. But MCU took the Marvel and MCU, Kevin Feige took the plunge anyway, and it definitely worked in their favor. Hell, even spoilers for San Diego Comic-Con, let's just say a certain actor returns as Victor Von Doom. long story short, this was never going to be a good adaptation of Crisis. I wouldn't even argue it's not even a good story inspired by Crisis. This is an executive mandate and Jim Krieg and staff making the best out of a bad situation. I'm just being honest. It really boils down. I'm not going to say Crisis is bad, but overall, if you average everything out between all three parts, especially when they're going to do a DVD release repackaging the entire trilogy, between the credits, between the opening and ending credits and some transition shots / title and a few transition shots including the title card, you're probably looking at a 30 maybe 45-minute difference between watching each film individually one after another compared to the time it would take to watch Crisis on Infinite Earths trilogy when it's eventually repackaged. The release probably be sometime this year or beginning of next year. But even so, it just feels like a corporate monotony, corporate mandate, and again, you're just making the best out of a bad situation. Sorry, Pika, I did not want this one to go as long as it did, but again, I really appreciate being on the show. I really appreciate continuing our collabs together. And hey, I'd be happy to come back on the show in the future. So,
Thanks, J-Heat. This video was missing a proper review part since I mostly focused on comparing the comic and the movie. To think it was back at the end of my Superman Brainiac / Unbound video where I set myself up for this project, along with Death of Superman and its follow-up stories. And now all of them are done with the help from all of these friends I have managed to make here on YouTube. Thank you again, J-Heat, Robert, Jared, and Nick. I have started scripts on videos about The Dark Knight Returns and Green Lantern Secret Origins / 2011 movie, but I'm going to get smaller videos done before them, like that Wonder Woman Bloodlines review I have promised to make twice now. And I still need to watch the remaining 4 episodes from the second season of Someone's Adventures with Superman. And then there is also this show that finally managed to climb its way out of development hell. While I will be working on the scripts on those videos, I will also be streaming Alan Wake 2 on New Game Plus. J-Heat, would you like to do the honors?
definitely check out Pika's channel. Be sure to check me out as well. If you want to, like, comment, subscribe, flame off. Thanks, Pika.
And may your heart be your guiding key.